Marcel Griol and Germain Dieterlen spent years living among the Dogon people, learning their language, earning the trust from priests and elders, being initiated, slowly, over years, into the deeper layers of Dogon cosmological knowledge. What they eventually documented stopped the academic world cold. The Dogon knew about a star that at the time of their study, and for centuries before it, was invisible to the naked eye and had not been successfully photographed by Western astronomy. They knew its orbital period, they knew it was small, they knew it was dense and extraordinarily heavy. They knew it moved in an elliptical orbit around Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. They had diagrams, drawings, a ceremonial tradition built around this star that researchers estimated was at least 400 years old. The star they described, which they called Po Tolo, is what modern astronomy calls Sirius B, a white dwarf companion to Sirius that Western science did not confirm until 1862. That was not photographed successfully until 1970. The Dogon had no telescopes, no universities, no contact with modern astronomy, and yet they still knew. And how they knew is one of the most genuinely unexplained mysteries in modern anthropology. And the answer the Dogon themselves give when you ask them directly where this knowledge came from is the most extraordinary part of the entire story. The Dogon are an ethnic group living primarily in the Mopti region in Mali in West Africa. They inhabit a dramatic landscape. The Bandiagara Escarpment, a sandstone cliff that stretches over 150 kilometers and raises up to 500 meters above the surrounding plains. Their villages are built into the cliff face at its base. Some of the most architecturally striking traditional settlements in the world. The Dogon have lived in this region for centuries, maintaining a way of life and a cosmological tradition that has been remarkably resistant to outside influence. They're not isolated or primitive people in any meaningful sense of those words. They're sophisticated agriculturalists with a rich artistic tradition. Their wooden masks and sculptures are among the most recognized examples of African art in the world. They have a complex social structure, a detailed mythology, and a system of knowledge transmission through initiated priests and elders that have preserved their traditions across generations. It's through that system of knowledge transmission that the astronomical information was preserved. The deepest cosmological knowledge of the Dogon, including everything we're about to discuss about Sirius, was not public knowledge within the tribe. It was sacred knowledge, held by a small number of initiated elders, passed down in controlled conditions to those deemed worthy to receive it. That detail matters, because it means that this was not casual folklore or vague mythology that happened to resemble astronomical fact. It was precise, specific, technical knowledge, treated as sacred and transmitted with care. The kind of knowledge that someone worked very hard to preserve intact across centuries. The question is, who created it in the first place? Before we go into that, let's establish what Sirius B actually is, because understanding the astronomy makes the Dogon knowledge more extraordinary, not less. Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky. It has been significant to cultures across the world for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians oriented their calendar around its heliacal rising, the moment each year when Sirius first becomes visible on the eastern horizon, just before dawn after a period of invisibility. The rising of Sirius marked the beginning of the annual Nile flood. It was one of the most important astronomical events in the Egyptian year. Sirius is what astronomers call a binary star system. It actually consists of two stars orbiting each other, Sirius A, the brilliant star we see in the night sky, and Sirius B, its companion. Sirius B is a white dwarf. A white dwarf is a collapsed remnant of a star that has exhausted its nuclear fuel. They are extraordinarily dense. A teaspoon of white dwarf material weighs approximately 5 tons. Sirius B has roughly the mass of our Sun, compressed into a sphere approximately the size of the Earth. And it's also very faint. Sirius B is approximately 10,000 times less luminous than Sirius A. Even at its closest approach to Earth, it was invisible to the naked eye, overwhelmed by the brilliance of its companion. The existence of Sirius B was first mathematically inferred in 1844 by German astronomer Friedrich Bessel, who noticed a slight wobble in Sirius A's movement through space, suggesting the gravitational influence of an unseen companion. Sirius B was first visually confirmed through a telescope in 1862. It was not successfully photographed until 1970. When Marcel Griaule and Germain Dieterlen documented Dogon cosmological knowledge in the 1930s and published their findings, first in academic papers and then in their 1965 book Le Renard Pale, The Pale Fox, what they recorded was not vague astronomical mythology. It was precise technical knowledge. The Dogon tribe called Sirius B Potolo. Po is the Dogon word for a tiny grain, the smallest seed they knew of. Tolo means star, the star that is tiny, a name that encodes the star's defining characteristic, its extraordinary smallness relative to its mass. The Dogon described Potolo as the heaviest star. They said it was made of a material called sagala, that is heavier than all the iron on Earth. That description for a pre-technological culture with no concept of white dwarf stellar physics is a remarkably accurate description of what white dwarf material actually is. Extraordinarily dense, far heavier than any material found naturally on Earth's surface. They describe Potolo's orbit around Sirius as elliptical, not circular, elliptical. Modern astronomy confirms Sirius B's orbit around Sirius A is indeed elliptical. They gave it its orbital period as 50 years. Modern astronomy has calculated Sirius B's orbital period as approximately 49.9 years, essentially 50 years. They drew diagrams showing Sirius at one focus of the elliptical orbit, not at the center. This is consistent with Kepler's laws of orbital mechanics. It's not a detail that would emerge from casual observation or inspired guesswork. They also had knowledge of a third star in the Sirius system, a star they called Emmy Yatolo, that modern astronomy has not yet confirmed but is not definitively ruled out. Some researchers have suggested Emmy Yatolo may be a third body in the Sirius system that our instruments have not yet fully characterized. Orbital period, elliptical path, stellar density, the primary star at one focus of the orbit. Knowledge that matches what some of the most advanced instruments in human history have since confirmed. Held by a tribe in Mali who say they received it centuries ago, from visitors who came from Sirius. Let's talk about the academic reception of this discovery, because it is itself part of the story. Griaule and Dieterlen's findings were published and discussed in anthropological circles for years before receiving wider attention. It was astronomer and author Robert Temple who brought the Dogon knowledge to mainstream attention with his 1976 book, The Sirius Mystery. Temple argued that the Dogon knowledge of Sirius B was so precise and so technically accurate that it could not have been arrived at independently, that it required an external source of information. Temple's book was controversial. It was criticized by mainstream astronomers and anthropologists on multiple grounds, some of which are legitimate and deserve to be examined fairly. The most serious academic criticism came from astronomers Carl Sagan and Ian Ridpath, who argued that the Dogon knowledge might have been contaminated. That Griaule and Dieterlen, who arrived in Mali in the 1930s after Sirius B was already known to Western astronomy, might have inadvertently introduced the knowledge into the Dogon tradition through their questioning. That the precise astronomical details appeared in Dogon accounts after contact with the French anthropologists rather than before. This is the skeptical position and it deserves to be taken seriously. Anthropological fieldwork is not immune to the observer effect. Questions shape answers. The way a researcher frames a question can influence the response they receive. But here's what the contamination theory struggles to explain. The Dogon ceremonial traditions associated with Sirius B. The Sigi ceremony, which occurs every 60 years, and the Bado ceremony, held every year, predate Griaule and Dieterlen's arrival by documented centuries. These are not oral accounts that could have been shaped by questioning. They are physical ceremonies with material culture attached to them. Masks, rituals, architectural features of village design that encode the astronomical knowledge in forms that cannot have been introduced through conversation with French anthropologists in the 1930s. The knowledge was already in the ceremonies before anyone from the modern world arrived to ask about it. Let's go through the conventional explanations and examine them honestly. The contamination theory we just covered. It struggles to account the ceremonial tradition predating Western contact. The second explanation is that the Dogon simply made accurate guesses, that their mythology happened to align with astronomical reality by coincidence. This explanation collapses under the weight of the specifics. Guessing that a companion star exists is one thing. guessing its orbital period to within a fraction of a year, its elliptical rather than circular orbit, the primary star's position at one focus in orbit, and its extraordinary density, all simultaneously and all correctly, is not a coincidence. The probability of that level of simultaneous accurate coincidence is effectively zero. The third explanation is ancient contact with another advanced human civilization that possessed astronomical instruments and knowledge. Possibly Egyptian or Greek astronomers who had calculated Sirius B's existence from orbital mechanics as Frederick Bessel did in 1844. The Dogon do have cultural connections to ancient Egypt through their oral history. The Egyptian astronomical knowledge of Sirius was sophisticated. But Egyptian and Greek astronomy, sophisticated as it was, did not include knowledge of Sirius B. The wobble in Sirius A's movement that allowed Bessel to infer a companion requires precise, multi-decade tracking of stellar position with instruments that the ancient world did not possess. Every explanation of how the Dogon knew runs into the specificity problem. The details are too precise, too technically accurate, too consistent with knowledge that requires either advanced instrumentation or a direct source. Which brings us to what the Dogon themselves say. The Dogon do not regard their origin of their astronomical knowledge as a mystery. They have a clear and consistent answer that has been part of their tradition for as long as the knowledge itself. They say it was given to them by the Nommo. The Nommo are described in Dogon cosmology as amphibious beings, part human, part fish or serpentine in form, who descended from the sky in an ark, who came from the Sirius system, who established themselves temporarily in a body of water near the Dogon's ancestral homeland, and who transmitted knowledge, astronomical, agricultural, civilizational, to the Dogon people before returning to the sky. The Nommo are not minor figures in Dogon mythology, they are central. The entire Dogon cosmological framework, their understanding of creation, of the cosmos, of human origins, is just organized around the Nommo and the knowledge they brought. Now I want you to hold that description alongside something we've covered extensively on this channel. Enki, the Sumerian god of wisdom who gave humanity knowledge against the wishes of the ruling divine hierarchy, is associated with water. His realm is the Abzu, the subterranean freshwater ocean. He is depicted with streams of water flowing from his shoulders. He is described as a being of extraordinary knowledge who chose to transmit that knowledge to humans. The Oannes, described in ancient Babylonian texts by the historian Berosus, were amphibious beings, half human and half fish, who emerged from the sea and gave humanity the foundations of civilization, writing, agriculture, architecture, law. The Dogon Nommo, the Sumerian Enki, the Babylonian Oannes, amphibious or water-associated beings, coming from above or from the sea, giving humanity knowledge, transmitting the foundations of civilization. 3 separate traditions, 3 separate continents, 3 separate descriptions of the same encounter. If the Dogon are telling the truth about where their knowledge came from, they are not telling us something new. They're telling us something ancient, something that other cultures recorded in different languages thousands of years before the Dogon ever encountered a French anthropologist. The Dogon have precise, technically accurate knowledge of a star invisible to the naked eye. Knowledge that encodes orbital mechanics, stellar density, and elliptical orbital geometry. Knowledge preserved in ceremonies that predate Western contact by centuries. The conventional explanations for how they knew this knowledge do not hold up to the specifics. And the explanation the Dogon themselves give, beings from the Sirius system descended and transmitted this knowledge, is structurally identical to accounts given by civilizations on the other side of the world. Civilizations that had no contact with the Dogon, no shared language, no documented exchange of mythology or religious tradition. All of them describe the same type of encounter. Advanced beings associated with water or descending from the sky, transmitting knowledge to early humans, knowledge that forms the foundation of civilization. The Dogon case is significant not just because the astronomical knowledge is unexplained. It is significant because it adds another point to a pattern that this channel has been documenting across multiple series. Every ancient culture that preserved detailed cosmological knowledge, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Vedic tradition, and now the Dogon, points to the same source. Beings that came from somewhere else, that chose specific people or peoples to receive specific knowledge, and that embedded that knowledge so deeply in ceremony and text and stone and oral tradition that it survived thousands of years of history intact. The Dogon did not discover Sirius B. They were told about it. The only question left is, who told them? The Dogon case has been studied, debated, and argued over by astronomers, anthropologists, and researchers for nearly 50 years since Robert Temple first brought it to mainstream attention. It has never been explained. The skeptical arguments have been made. The contamination theory has been examined. The coincidence explanation has been weighed against the specifics. And the knowledge remains precise, technically accurate, embedded in a ceremonial tradition that predates modern astronomy by centuries. The Dogon know what they know because someone told them. Their own tradition is consistent and specific about who that someone was. Whether you accept their answer or not, the knowledge itself demands an explanation that nobody has yet been able to provide. If this video piqued your interest, go back and watch the Anunnaki Files in the Same God series on this channel, because the Nommo, the Oannes, and the Anunnaki are threads of the same story. And the more of those threads you follow, the harder it becomes to dismiss what they are all pointing toward. As always, thank you so much for your time. Please subscribe, comment on this video, let me know what your thoughts are on this. It's kind of a crazy one, and I'll talk to you later.